Thank you. Thank you for talking with us.
Thanks for having me.
I guess I'll just start with a question about, today's news. How did it feel when you heard that another American doctor on a medical mission in Africa now has Ebola?
Um, my heart sank when I heard that news. Uh, I, yeah, I was reminded of all of the people who went to such great lengths to help me when I was sick. And if there's anything I can do to help this individual, I want to do it.
I remember your journey and how important faith was to you, and I know still is. I would imagine that there are some words of wisdom that you could probably share with Dr. Stafford, but also prayers for him. So, what are the kinds of things that you would want him to know, and what are the prayers you are saying for him and his family?
I would just want the Stafford family to know that they are not alone, that there are lots and lots of people praying for them and trying to help them. And um, I would want to encourage Dr. Stafford to just hang in there. Um, it's a really scary and lonely thing to um, to be that sick, but also to know that it's Ebola. And I'm praying that he uh, can find some comfort and peace and that he makes a full recovery.
And you're a testament to that, right? I mean, your journey was certainly not easy, but Ebola can be survived.
It can be. And the mortality rate with this strain is thought to be somewhere between 30 to 40%, um, which is very high for an illness. Don't get me wrong. That is very high, especially for an illness that doesn't have any known therapeutics or vaccines. Um, but it is not 100%. There are people who will survive this, just as there were many, many people who survived the outbreak in West Africa and the many outbreaks that have happened since then.
You said that it this news, your heart sank. It took you back to your journey. Um, how often do you go back there? How often do you think back on 2014?
I think about the events of 2014 a lot. I don't know if I can honestly say it's every day anymore, but most days there is something that brings it to mind. But today's experiences, the events of today, bring it all home in a much more acute way.
Um, Tell me about how important it is that the mission continues in Africa despite continued outbreaks, despite dangers. I mean, how important is it that American doctors and doctors from all over the world continue to be present there and continue to do this work?
Look, you like the fact or not, we live in a global community. We are all connected. And as I think I said sometime in 2014, the well-being of each of us is directly connected to the well-being of all of us. I I follow the teachings of Jesus, who said, "Love your neighbor as yourself." Um, whether you subscribe to those same teachings or not, it's good for all of us to care about our neighbors and to seek their good. And right now, our neighbors in East Africa are suffering greatly from this outbreak. It was detected late. There have been over 300 cases, and the last report I read said over 100 deaths attributed to this outbreak. And the United States, the nations of the world need to come together to support the Democratic Republic of Congo and Uganda and South Sudan to bring an end to this outbreak before it spreads any further.
I was looking back on the old video from you in 2014 when you were speaking at Emory, and one of the things you said was, please pray for the people of Africa. I'm betting you still feel deeply that the people of Africa need prayers now.
Absolutely. Um, I'm praying for Dr. Stafford and his family, but he is one face among many. The vast majority of those 300 cases have been Congolese citizens who did nothing to contract this disease. They they just happened to be in contact with someone else who had it. And Ebola is known as a caregiver's disease because it often spreads from the infected individual to those who are caring for them. So in many cases, these people are probably just like Dr. Stafford, the ones who are rendering aid, who are helping those in need, um, who end up being impacted themselves. So we've got to pray for the people of DRC, for the people of East Africa, um, expats and nationals alike.
I know you went back to Africa after your encounter with Ebola. Tell me about how did that take a lot of courage? Was that a difficult decision, or were you drawn there? And would you consider going back?
Uh, my family and I lived in Zambia for about 4 years, since 2019. Um, it was we were drawn back to that kind of work. That's what we had always wanted to do. It's what we had set out to do in 2014. We were really grateful for the opportunity to return to a place where we could serve from 2019 to 2023. We were we were there. I started in the hospital in March of 2020, right at the same time that COVID hit. So yeah, it was difficult. It was challenging in a lot of ways, but we we were really blessed to be there for those 4 years to serve people, to have some really close friendships and relationships that I value a lot with our friends and neighbors there in Zambia.
Just a couple more things. I worry a little bit about how Americans might react to this latest outbreak just because of fatigue from COVID and just, I don't know, there's a lot of misinformation now that maybe wasn't quite as prevalent in 2014. So from your medical perspective, your personal experience, would you just give me your take on how should we be thinking in America about this latest Ebola outbreak?
First of all, I would want to say the average American has nothing to be afraid of or worry about with regard to this outbreak. I want to reiterate the same message I shared in 2014, and that is that we have to respond from a place of compassion and not from a place of fear. Ebola evokes a lot of fear, and rightfully so. It is a terrible illness, but we can't allow it to make us afraid of other people. We've got to respond with care and compassion. And I'm so grateful to the many people who said yes to taking care of me when I was sick, the people who took care of me in Liberia, the people who evacuated me, the many people who said yes to bringing me back to the United States to receive treatment at Emory. And I there have been so many gains. We've made so much progress in our ability to treat an illness like this, to respond to an outbreak of an infectious disease. There's not Only Emory in Nebraska and NIH, but there are now 13 centers just around the United States that are set up and capable and prepared to take care of patients who have been exposed or infected by what we call emerging special pathogens. There are, I think, 16 Americans or 18 Americans in quarantine in Nebraska right now being given excellent care to watch them, make sure they don't develop symptoms, and to treat them in the best way possible if they do develop symptoms. from the hantavirus cruise ship. I I hope that Americans can see what's happening on the other side of the world and be motivated to pray for our neighbors in East Africa, to support the response efforts, and to welcome anyone with compassion who needs our help.
It's a beautiful thing. And I feel like, I know you're not in Texas anymore, but the Dallas-Fort Worth area has a very strange connection, given that you were a Fort Worth doctor and given, that we did have Ebola here. So I feel like there's a strange, maybe historical bent that maybe people in North Texas might feel different about Ebola. What would you say to us? Because we have had it in our city, and you've lived here for a long time.
You know, to respond from compassion instead of fear doesn't mean to be naive or unprepared. It's wise to implement screening, to in the wake of the Ebola outbreak in 2014, entire health systems revamped their initial history taking to remember what we all learned in medical school, that you need to ask people's travel history. There's still no reason for Americans to be afraid of this outbreak. They need to remember that we live in a nation of great wealth and opportunity, and we have some of the best doctors and medical care available here, and we need to use those blessings to help other people.
I think final question for you is, I think you said that you remember being in your bed in Liberia and praying for God to give you faith during your illness. How critical was your faith in bringing you through? I know that the doctors and knowledge and the things that you physically got at Emory were key, but faith had a big part too.
Yeah, I think I said to someone in an interview in 2014 that really it was my faith that got me into that whole situation. Because I don't believe faith is just a set of beliefs or propositions. It is a, the way you live your life in response to God. And I held on to that trust in Jesus in the midst of my illness, not because I thought doing so would make me miraculously recover or survive, but because it's all I could do at the time. So my prayers are with Dr. Stafford and his family and his colleagues, and I pray that they have some faith, some hope to hold on to in this dark time.
Dr. Brantly, thank you so much.
Thank you too.